Well, we've got a couple interesting stories today. This first one's kind of bad, obviously. The Tacoma transmission's failing, and someone is suing Toyota for this issue, which is an interesting take on the transmission problem. I'll get to that in just a second. Another thing we're going to talk about later is Toyota is actually developing a new way with a new engine hoist in order to just remove the hood on the Tundras to put the engines in with this different hoist. We'll get to that here in just a moment. Let's start with this story, though, first. So Toyota's 2024 Tacoma transmission issue did not stop a class action lawsuit. As most of you know, Toyota issued a TSB on this, Technical Service Bulletin, for the 2024 Tacoma. They announced that they'd be replacing the 8-speed transmissions and torque converters with a pressure control solenoid actuator stuck or torque converter clutch actuator locked in the off position. Evidently, that promise of a fix was not enough for Abdul Sayed, who is the plaintiff in this lawsuit against Toyota. The lawsuit claims that the 8-speed can fail to shift into gear, enter limp mode, or engage harshly, leading to damage that can cause the entire gearbox to fail. Furthermore, they allege that the transmission and torque converters offered by Toyota as replacements are also defective. We've actually seen that. I've had a couple emails where someone got a new transmission and then they had issues with that as well. According to Sayed, he owns the 2024 TRD Sport, began acting up with 100 miles on the odometer, slowed for a stop. He says that the transmission violently downshift and jerked between gears. When accelerating from the stop, he noticed a delay, sloppy engagement, and a jolt that did not exactly inspire confidence. Sayed says he's experienced this unpleasant sequence 10 to 15 times since buying the truck. Interesting with this lawsuit, I don't think he's actually had a transmission failure. What he's actually suing Toyota for, and this could get really interesting for Toyota, the class action alleges that Toyota is liable for fraudulent concealment, omission, breach of express and implied warranty, unjust enrichment, and violation of California consumer advertising and unfair competition laws. So the unjust enrichment, I think, is because he's saying that Toyota knew about this problem and still sold the trucks anyway. And I think that's where Toyota might get into some trouble with this, because they always claim, same thing with the debris issues in the Tundras, they knew about it, then they give you a list of VINs or years that are affected, but they do that after they sold the truck. So it kind of implies that they knew beforehand, and then they end up actually issuing TSBs or recalls after the trucks are sold. And I think that's where the legal kind of premise for this comes in. And I'm just speculating here. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just kind of reading between the lines. And this guy's not alone. I receive emails about this all the time for people that haven't had their transmission actually fail yet, but they're just waiting for it to, and it just feels like it's going to. Like this gentleman here, Taco Freak, in the forum. He's on the Tacoma 4G forum. He says, I'm glad to see this. I have hard shifts. They are delayed when they happen, and they feel like someone hit the transmission housing with a mallet. I also have mileage way below what is claimed for a hybrid, which probably comes from it not always locking the torque converter. And he goes on to say, I think Toyota is doing the right thing for owners with failed transmissions. Well, obviously, they're all under warranty, so they're going to repair them. He says, but for those of us with damaged transmissions, their approach, Toyota's approach, is for them to just drive it until it dies, and that seems like not the best approach, and that's why this lawsuit is happening. He says, I check my truck for transmission codes on a regular basis, hoping to win the lottery of, you get a new transmission. Interesting that people are now, these guys are buying OBD2 readers and trying to prove that, if they get those transmission codes, they can actually get a replacement from Toyota. It could get interesting. It could be a big nothing, but it could get interesting for Toyota again. So what do I think will happen with this lawsuit? I think that if Toyota is being honest about how many vehicles were affected, and it doesn't end up being like hundreds of thousands of Tacomas, I do think that this might go away, kind of like the 2018 camera transmission issues. They might be able to just fix, 5,000, 10,000 trucks, whatever it's going to be, and then this will just fizzle away. Currently, there's 49 complaints on the Tacoma, which is quite a bit it's a first year. The problem is a lot of these complaints, like even the latest one, October 24th, this is, the transmission failed on October 24th, but these also could be, they sold over 100,000 of these, I believe, this year. So it could be that there's just that percentage that started out under this TSB, and they're just finally all starting to fail now. It's really, really tough to tell. because you might get one submission here to this website for every 10 failures. People don't have to submit this information. I think it's like a multiplier. A lot of folks say, oh, there's only 1 in October or 5 in October or whatever it is. Really, that you have to multiply that out because not everybody's going to report this. I know, before I started doing YouTube stuff, if I had something wrong with my car, I'm most certainly not going online and going to post about it or fill out the National Highway Traffic and Safety. I'm just going to go to the dealer, get it fixed under warranty, and move on with my life. And the second story is for Tundra owners. We shouldn't be seeing any more of this. These full cab off repairs. Toyota claims that they are going away from that. Here's an article from Automotive News. It says the manufacturer's approach has been to try to reduce complexity for their technicians. They've spent a lot of time consulting different groups, including dealer councils, and they've been really helpful in their feedback. Toyota not only will replace the engines efficiently, but also get some benefit from the recall, which the automaker estimates is going to cost $300 million to $500 million, such as building skills in junior technicians. So earlier in this article, they said they're going to have their master technicians on these projects for these engines, but they're also going to have junior techs learning because they're sending the full crate engines to the dealership. So they assume that these junior technicians can probably do some of these replacements after they get used to how this repair is done. I found this part interesting. It says, rather than having the store technicians remove engines, disassemble, clean, and reinstall them, a labor-intensive, time-consuming process requiring equipment service departments likely would not have, Toyota is replacing the engines with new ones. So that's the crate engines that they're getting, brand new. The company would not say specifically how much each engine replacement costs, but based on what Toyota has budgeted for the safety recall, the cost per vehicle is expected to be about $3,000 to $5,000. Now, I don't know about you, but I would guess that is just the labor cost. I think with this new refined labor process Toyota has we're going to get to that here in a second about how they're going to do this. They think it's going to cost between $3,000 and $5,000 to take these brand new crate engines and plop them into new Tundras. And a little confirmation here. The faulty engines were produced in 2 Toyota plants, one in Japan and one in Alabama. Toyota won't say what caused the swarf, the debris, to remain in the engines, but it could be the result of a change in the manufacturing or cleaning process, new machinery, or defective tooling, not human error. So the plot thickens a little bit more with Toyota. So they're saying that now confirmed in 2 plants, Japan and America, they're having the same problem. Do you still think it's debris? I mean, I guess when they produced these engines, how did they produce these for their testing? How did they, they had to at some point test their assembly line out. It seems very bizarre to me. And this is where they talk about how they refined the process to replace your Tundra engine. They said to get the engine out, technicians will have to remove the vehicle's hood to gain access to the engine bay. They will drain fluids, disconnect ancillary parts, such as air conditioning, fuel systems, yada yada. The engine will be unbolted from the transmission and the engine mounts and then lifted up and out. Rice said the replacement trials identified the need for a hoist that could extract the engine without technicians having to disassemble the grille, radiator supports, and such. He said Toyota is supplying dealerships with a new hoist and a different hook that raises the engine 2 feet higher than the hoists Toyota currently uses. Gates sees opportunities in the recall for his younger technicians to get experience with engine replacements earlier in their career than they would normally. They say, we'll take a man or woman who is primarily doing light maintenance and offer them an opportunity to work with a master tech. He said it's a great opportunity. I actually think in this scenario, it's probably just fine to have these younger or less experienced technicians working with a master tech, kind of learning how to plug in an engine. It's kind of like Legos. This is definitely not anywhere near as complex as rebuilding a short block like they were doing. So in this scenario, they're just getting more hands to help them. They have so many engines to replace in these Tundras. So it looks like they've streamlined the process, worked with dealers. This is probably the best possible outcome for maybe 22 to 23, 24 owners that get one of these long blocks. You're going to essentially get a new engine. Hopefully they won't do that cab off repair for you. And some of these technicians, I suppose, might just prefer the cab off or the hoists aren't there yet. But once they get the hoist to all the dealerships, looks like it's going to be a fairly straightforward repair. So let me know what you think in the comments. Interesting stuff at Toyota for sure. Hopefully they get things back on track. I am a Toyota fan, despite what a lot of you think in the comments. I've got 2 Toyotas in the garage, and I think at some point here in the near future, I will be doing videos on both of them. Anyway, thanks for watching. Till next time.